Hey guys, good morning. Let's go into the little garden. I'm gonna get into the shade. It's kind of late morning. Well, welcome back guys. We are in my smaller garden. My name is Kylie Gray and you are in our farm in Central Oregon. We are a garden zone 3 with a frost risk all year round. We have some difficult growing conditions. So if you look over at videos and people in a way longer season, their gardens are gonna be a lot larger. And maybe even here, if you live locally to Central Oregon, you're gonna hear my geese in the background, then your gardens might be bigger. But we are in a microclimate. I once had a person comment, I've looked up Oregon and there are no zones in the zone 3 in Oregon. That is true because we are a micro zone climate, and if you actually Google where we live in Lapine, Oregon, it says we're zone 6, which if you try to grow any perennials in our zone 6, you will be sorely disappointed in the results. But we are a microclimate. We've had a lot of studies done here from our local universities in Oregon and have come up with this. So that is where we're at. I've had one summer that I've been gardening, which was my first year gardening, that I didn't have a frost. My garden hits its peak mid to late August. That's when all my sunflowers will be in bloom and all of the things. Real quick, we're gonna flash back a couple days. Well, yesterday, and I'm going to show you what this garden looked like yesterday. And I had my husband and my boys, they came out here and helped me, and we just took back this garden, and I feel like she can breathe again. So I'm going to insert those clips of just my family helping me out and what it looked like before. It's voiceover Kylie, and I just wanted to jump in here because that giant comfrey is huge and I'm very proud of it, but she needed to be trimmed down. She'll probably grow back by the time and harvest again. She's blossomed, she's gorge. This pathway I've been working really hard on to keep it up with, and there are a few. It looks way better than it did because I was really busting my butt this morning before the boys and family came, my husband came, but that right there is a pathway. You can't even tell it. It's a weedy, crazy mess, and it's got all sorts of wonderful things in it, but it had to go. So this is just basically, I was out there that morning and really working hard, and my family wanted me to go to town with them. And they volunteered to help me when they got back, and I really just didn't think they would, and they did. And it was such a major blessing. What would have taken me hours and days took us 20-30 minutes together. So as you can tell, this garden was taken over by the weeds, and it was really funny to watch. I'm gonna throw my geese some old spinach real quick because it calms them down. I've been clearing it out. It's gone to seed. You guys saw me plant it a few months ago on the ice. My geese expect treats. Now they'll calm down. So before, when you walked into this gate, the comfrey was so freaking tall and huge and flopping over. Trimmed it back. I have it drying on my picnic table here, and it's a really good medicinal thing. Also, my rhubarb was massive, and harvested that. We actually put that in the freezer to process later in the week. This pathway was crazy, which is still a little wild. A lot of the raspberries are traveling across the pathway, and they're about to get dug up. My sister's gonna come up. I have a good friend who's coming, and she and my sister are going to take all of these little runners. I have plenty of raspberries here for our family as long as they start doing well. We did this last year too, and they just keep coming, which is fine. I'm all for sharing, and I'm all for when we make our big raspberry patch in the larger garden, we'll just be able to utilize all these runners and crazy things. So I just wanted to give you, I feel like the little garden can breathe. And I say it jumps hugely in July, and it'll jump again hugely from the beginning of July to mid-July, which it is mid-July. So the garden is, my sunflowers probably have already doubled in size from the last video I showed you guys about this. And all sorts of things. So these walking onions are they're starting to flop. I'm about to put their seed into the ground, which is perfect. I have Parisian market carrots. They're just loving their life. And I have a bunch of wildflowers, mainly calendula. I think I have chamomile or cosmos. I cannot tell the difference between the leaf. Oh, I should look it up. But all of this is cleared out. Look at all these hollyhocks about to go. I wanted this area. It's like kind of always unruly and unmanageable. I just wanted it to be crazy flowers and herbs and all the things. Last year was my first year of having this garden that not one poppy germinated and came up. And normally I always have those beautiful peony poppies, which are just to die for, and replanted them, and here they're coming up. Oop, that's a lamb's quarter coming up here. Lamb's quarter, man, it was taking over this garden. Poppies are popping up everywhere, all over, which is good because I missed them last year. My cabbages, and I have cabbages, Brussels sprouts, and broccoli, cauliflower all planted in here. They're doing really awesome. It's mid-July and it's Central Oregon. I always say we have a catch-22 because we're in the high desert, so we get super hot heat and we can freeze. So it's like hard to plant tomatoes outside. It's hard to do a lot of the things that you would normally plant in a summer garden outdoors unless you're very willing to cover it or on a moment's notice, which I am not. So I plant all of the frost tender things out in the high tunnel, and anything that's in like the cosmos that will freeze. It's just expected that if they make it, they make it. If they don't, they don't. But as far as what I plant in here, this big tree, which I have fondly named Treebeard, he provides this garden with a ton of shade, and it's typically like 20-degree difference from our massive garden to our small garden. This is our small garden. So when I say this is our small garden, it is a 900 square foot garden. This is the first garden I had here in Central Oregon. And it's a no-dig style, which is why we had the pathways were crazy and the beds had less weeds than the pathways, which is good. You'd rather have that, right? This is our smaller one. Our larger garden is a 14,000 square foot garden, which we've typically in years past had interns and volunteers and employees, and we don't this year. And we're just turning things around a bit. Well, that big garden, I'm going to tell you all about maybe in like the next week or two of what the plans are for that. Things I think are happening there, but they're not what I expected. We'll see. Okay, so this garden is my like sanctuary. This is where I am a Christian. I love the Lord. I feel God in this garden. I feel God in all my gardens, but this is where it all began for me. And it's just lovely in here. And because you can come in here in the heat of the day and it feels cool. So we got the cabbages, more raspberries coming through. This is my currant bush. It's a red currant bush. And you can see a bunch of berries in here. It's loaded all the way down. The bees are in here. They're just loving this garden. My raspberries, this looks like I have a plant up here that has quite a few blossoms on it, and this is going to be the most raspberries we've ever gotten because I've had so little raspberries. I was planning on moving them, but with just the amount of garden work I had this spring, just didn't happen. Elderberries, more comfrey. This guy needs harvested as well. These are the parsnips. I have not planted parsnips in here, and the bees are all over this, so I gotta be careful. I have not planted parsnips in this garden for 3 years, but they always reseed. And this year, and I've just been keeping the seed. So I have a massive row of just parsnips over in the large garden, and this is just my seed crop, basically. I just let it keep going, and it's so beautiful, and it's one of the first things to flower besides the little Johnny jump ups everywhere for the bees. Got lots of cool crops going in here. I had planted cold crops in here and they weren't coming up, and now I think they're coming up since I planted starts. I would not. Something's eating. We got to get some netting. Oh, look at that leaf. That's bad. I'm gonna rip that off. I would have not planted 3 things like that together. So that was some of my seed, which tells you my seed is caught up with the starts I sowed. That is normal, but it just had really spotty germination. I still have my rocker in here, which is like my first rocking chair, because I have left it out for so many years. It needs a refinishing. My gooseberry. Now, if you know anything about gooseberries, let me know. I would assume they're ready when they're soft. The most gooseberries I've ever had. And it's also loaded down in there. I don't know if you can see. She's doing super good, and I just don't know when she's ready. And I've tasted the green ones. They're sour. I think they stay green, but I'm just not quite sure. Tried to grow horseradish many times. Probably most of it was my neglect, but I haven't been able to do it. Finally, my friend, for the 3rd time, she grows it really well, just right down the road from me. She gave me another round 2 years ago, and it's finally established. I have 2 patches of horseradish. I really enjoy horseradish. It is one of my, as a condiment. I don't just like gnaw on it, you know what I'm saying? I have planted so many strawberries in this garden, it's ridiculous. Even last year, last fall, I planted this whole row of strawberries, and I don't know if I over mulched them and smothered them. I had a 0 survival rate. But the first year I had a garden in here, I planted these on the sides. And this bush is about, oh, I got a berry right here. And this one is a trailer. We got some weeds still. Ah! So this one is a champ, and I don't do anything to it. So maybe that's the key. But I did plant like 150 berries in my high tunnel because I was sick of spending bazillions of dollars on strawberries and losing them all. So there's that. We grew potatoes in here last year. And of course, you're bound to have volunteers every time you grow potatoes. So these are actually looking really good. There's there, and even down there. So potatoes, we'll get a little decent harvest out of that. I bet we get at least 10 pounds from those volunteers. And again, these pathways will look so much cleaner once the raspberries are gone, which will be this week. So that will be nice. Hello.
Hello.
What are you doing?
I need your camera.
So there's a little garden, mid-July. She's gonna be looking real good in the next coming months. My baby carrots, the Parisian markets get like the size of a radish anyway. They're my favorite carrot known to mankind. And I found them because of market gardening. Market gardening Parisian markets are quite a hit because they are quick maturing and they're so cute and so tasty that people just love them. But I fell in love with them because of their flavor. But now they're becoming more, I don't know, mainstream, where you could even get them at Walmart in a seed packet. So I think they're becoming quite popular because they're great for container gardening, or I don't know. They're just so tasty. If I have a year without them, it's a very sad year. And last year was very minimal. I also don't thin them. They seem to do great, like a radish where they kind of can bulb up around each other just fine. As long as your soil's healthy enough. Now this garden bed, I have always had a hard time with bulbing. There's flies everywhere in here. Get away! Bulbing things in this bed. Back in the back half of the garden, they can bulb up just fine. But in this front bed, no. But I was encouraged because I accidentally weeded one and it was pretty little still, but it was like this big. So they're getting there. But they're literally, if you get one like this big, that's a giant one, and they'll be on its way to splitting. So you gotta be careful with that. So there's a little update, guys. We just took this garden back, and sometimes you gotta do that. I'm very thankful for my husband and my children being willing to come out and just spend. It took us like 30 minutes to get this all out, when it would have taken me hours to do it by myself. Thank you guys so much for following along with me, and thank you for coming into my special sanctuary of a garden, because this is my favorite place. And I always want to try to name it something else besides the little garden. There's a sign, a sign I got from my sister. It says the vintage garden, and I have it hung up, which I think would be a better name than the little garden. But I just keep calling it the little garden. So maybe one day I could maybe we should call it the vintage garden. I don't know. Oh, I'm planting, I gotta get out here and plant some seeds. That's what I'm out here for. I got some lettuce seeds where the spinach was, and I got some peas. I normally plant peas up my windmill, and then I added this. I need to straighten it out. I don't know if you can see. It's like a white, they're old rails from a bed, and to plant peas to climb up it. So that's what I'm gonna get to doing, and I will see you guys on my next video. Thank you guys. Bye guys.